Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to your favorite podcast.
Riffin with Griffin, yeah.
Whoa, whoa, yeah.
Riffin with Griffin.
Riffin with Griffin.
Riffin with Griffin, yeah.
Whoa,
Riffin with Griffin, baby.
welcome back to Riffin with Griffin.
Riffin with
We had to take a week off. I'll tell you all about it. But we're back with the guest. I have the great Phil Hendrie on the podcast today. Fantastic radio host, and there's a new documentary about him called Hendrie. So a bulk of the episode will be talking to him. But as always, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's going on with me, and I'll talk a little bit about some pop culture, but it's always
Riffin with Griffin, yeah. Riffin with Griffin.
All right, y'all. Riffin with Griffin, and we're back. Yeah, so, Riffin with Griffin. You guys know how we do it. Oh, I didn't even do all that right. Make sure you come check me out. Subscribe. Make sure you subscribe, hit the notification so you know when I'm going live or when I upload an episode. I'm on Twitch daily, game all the time, and I also do my live Monday Nuance. My Monday Nuance, which comes out on Patreon and live on Twitch on Mondays for subscribers, and then it goes to the Patreon, which I've been pretty consistent now, 7-8 weeks in a row, Patreon content. So make sure you subscribe to that. I know you get like a free trial, and then after that, hey, subscribe. Help your boy out. But that's basically what's going on there. And welcome back to the podcast. If you follow me on Instagram, or I've had a tough week. It was a tough couple of weeks. If like my mom has dementia, and she now is in the hospital, went into the hospital because she had a terrible blood clot. So, my mom's in hospice care right now, and you know how that goes. It's a difficult situation. I talked a little bit about this on my, again, on my Patreon episode, but I just want to reiterate that, listen, if you have a older person in your life, be an advocate for them when you go to the hospital, or you go to the doctor with them regularly. Because the thing is when an older person goes to the doctor and they say they have some sort of symptoms like shortness of breath, or I feel weak, or it could be something that could be attributed to many things. A lot of times you go to the doctor and they're going to be like, well, they're old, and this is the kind of thing like, hey, be a nuisance. Be like, yeah, I think we should do blood tests. And they'll be like, well, I think that's a waste of time. It's like, oh, okay, well, I pay for insurance, and, I want you to do blood tests. I want you to do chest x-rays. I think you should be an advocate for these people because, it's like, what I find is like, going to the doctor is not like the television shows, okay? On television shows, the doctors care about every patient, and they want to make sure that they're alive, and there's going to be like a good doctor or a house or somebody that's going to like, oh, I know what this is. I can tell by the dilated pupils that this could be this, and then, cure your grandma. Yeah, it's not really like that. They have so many patients. They probably are understaffed. They don't got time for that. So they're going to in and out, And so knowing that, you have to be the one to say something, because this is like one of those kinds of things. But it's hard when you're talking about a dementia patient, because they don't even know what's happening to them, or they can't remember that this happened, or it can't be like, ooh, this pain, how long have you had this pain for? They might be like, I don't know, today, you know what I mean? So it's a difficult situation. So, and I was very devastated by, this news. Because, I've been preparing for this, right? You think you're ready, but you're not. You think you're ready, you're not, and it was like, oh man, I was just ugly white girl crying, but I want to say this too, though, that being said, I want to thank all the messages that I got And it reminded me about something. It really confirmed to me that there are more good people out there on the internet than bad. It is a difficult thing right now. You just saw that one basketball player from LSU. I forgot her name. But, she was just talking about the death threats she got last year and being overly sexualized and all the negative comments that come. It's like we're not really equipped for that. I mean, human beings are really not equipped to receive negativity like that at that scale. Most people aren't built for that, And so the internet, the social media has become a haven for that. And when you're a podcast host, you get a lot of that, and when you're, especially also when you're a comedian, people say, they say something terrible or disparaging or whatever. And then they go, I thought you were a comedian. I thought you could take jokes. It's like, even if you're a comedian, like, how many jokes are you supposed to take all the time? You get what I'm saying? So not everybody's built for that. And so I say that to say a lot of times you start to you focus on the negative because you think there's so much of it, because it's just glaring in your face. But what I was reminded of this past week is there's far more positive than negative, because all the positive people saw my situation and they reached out. A lot of great messages, a lot of heartfelt messages, a lot of condolences and things like that. And I just want to say I do appreciate that. And my eyes are now open even more to the fact that, again, there are more good people than bad. And, I understand that the good people out there are like, hey, man, I don't want to be involved in this negativity. So that's why they don't jump in on stuff or comment all the time, because I think a sane, rational person would be like, let me stay off social media. So I do appreciate the people that took that time to be like, oh, you know what? Now it's time for me to get in here and say something. So I do appreciate that, So like I said, I actually changed my whole perspective on this. Now it just solidified for me. It's like there are like most of your fans are good. You know what I mean? Like they're good people. Or they're just not the kind of people that have to go onto a public platform and say the worst things about you. You know what I mean? So I do realize that. So it's like I needed that. Sadly, it had to come at, the things that's happening right now. But, it is what it is, man. So, yeah, so I have a guest, guys. I'm going to try to get some more guests, but I do have a guest on this episode. It's pre-recorded. Actually, this is recorded, too. I'm recording this. I'm not doing this live because I have scheduling things going on, but it is what it is. But in the meantime, I just wanted to, again, talk about that situation with my mom and thank everybody for all their nice messages. And so, a lot of stuff going on in the world right now. There's just only a couple weird little stories that I wanted to talk about that I saw on the internet. Where's my Riffin with Griffin topics? Here they are. Here we go, Riffin topics. First of all, I saw this and I thought this was crazy. I mean, maybe it's not crazy, but did you guys see that Lizzo is retiring? She says she's retiring. She goes, I'm getting tired of putting up with being dragged by everyone in my life and on the internet. All I want to do is make music and make people happy and help the world be a little better than how I found it. Blah, 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 goes on and on. I didn't sign up for this. I quit. This is exactly what I was talking about earlier about not everybody's built for this, man. I don't think anyone is, actually. It's what I've come to realize now. Is at first I thought it's like this whole idea hey, have tough skin and you're supposed to. No, I realized that no one is built for this. No one is built to receive this type of attention when there's anything negative going on in your life or something happens and then people start attacking you. No one's built for it. And this is, look what happened, And I am not a fan of this type of message because this is not helping. What you trying to get sympathy? Just leave. This is my thing. It's oh, you don't just sign off, turn off your social media or delete it or something, or just take off. I hate when my own friends do this. How many times you have a friend be like, oh, you know what? I'm taking a break from social media. Bitch, this ain't you're not working. Like, this ain't like you taking a break from, hey, I'm taking a 20, I'm gonna go get lunch right now. Nobody cares. Just leave. You know what I mean? Like, just leave. I'm sad that this is happening to her. I don't even know what's going on with whatever happened with her backup dancers in the case, because the way the press works is they come out with stories, they tear people down, and then there's never any follow-up to find out, well, whatever happened with that. So, or maybe it is out there and we just don't care anymore because it's only the fall that we care about, Nobody cares about the retractions or the get me up and all that stuff. It's just like, you know what I mean? So I don't even know what's going on with that, but I guess farewell, Lizzo. I didn't like her. It wasn't my cup of tea anyway. So like, bye, I guess. The other weird story is FatCon is back, y'all. FatCon. It's 3-day liberation celebration. What are we talking about? Okay. What are we talking about? I don't even know. Let's listen in.
Something you don't want to miss. I'm going to FatCon in Seattle, Washington, January 5th through 7th, and I want to see you there. FatCon is a 3-day fat liberation celebration, y'all. We will be celebrating fat liberation, body acceptance, and the power of being in fat community. With over...
Okay. I have an issue with this because it's conflating two things. Body positivity and acceptance of an unhealthy lifestyle, not the same thing. I don't know, man. This is like going to be like a sign of our era, our time, this generation. This generation of like, this isn't healthy, okay? It's not healthy. I don't condone it, so doctors don't subscribe to this. There isn't a doctor alive, unless they're trying to clout chase for fame, that would come out here and endorse an unhealthy lifestyle. But when you talk about it like this, and you talk about this kind of stuff, what ends up happening is you're fat shaming. And so then it becomes about that. Whereas we're supposed to have our own shame. Like, what is shame? Okay? You ever ask yourself that? What's shame, guys? What's shame? If you had to look up, let's just Google it. What is shame? Okay? Shame is a feeling of embarrassment or humiliation that arises from the perception of having done something dishonorable, immoral, or improper. So I don't even know if we're using the word shame in the right context when it comes to fatness. Then another definition. What exactly is shame? Shame is an unpleasant, self-conscious emotion often associated with negative self-evaluation, motivation to quit, a feeling of pain, exposure, distrust, powerlessness, and worthlessness. So when I hear that, I feel like we're designed to feel shame. That's why we have a name for this feeling. We feel shame, and then that shame makes us change, right? When someone does something bad or awful, and you go, oh, look what you did, you feel shame. I think it goes in with guilt. These are all like natural human emotions. So when you put a title on it and you say fat shaming, as if to say, because those two things, I don't know if they should even go together. Because if we were just talking about, if you're at the doctor's office, like any one of these fat people that are going to FatCon, if they were going instead to FatCon, they were going to their doctor's office, and their doctor would be like, okay, ooh, what's going on with you? Are you, if they have any kind of issues, it's going to be about them being fat. Now, is that shaming? Like, is the doctor shaming them? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe when you look in the mirror and you feel fat, it's because you're fat. Maybe when you look in the mirror and you don't feel good about yourself because of whatever the factors are, mostly being like unhealthy and out of shape, maybe that's the shame is supposed to inspire you to like, let's work on this. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Whatever your motivation is, for me, it was having a kid. I'm down 20 pounds and I still got more to go. But I thought about my kid. I thought about like what being fat does to your health and your longevity. And I was like, oh, I want to be here for my child. If I stay fat and eat unhealthily, then maybe I'm going to die early. But I want to survive as long as I can, right? Is that a form of shame? Is that a form of me thinking like that was the thing that got into my head to make me be like, oh, you know what? I don't like how I look. I don't like how I feel. Let me do something about this. I think we got to stop talking about it in this way that they're presenting this. Like that woman is like unhealthy. She's probably got numerous health conditions that she doesn't even realize. Obesity, it's like, look it up, man. It's become the number one cause of death in the United States. Obesity-related issues. But then we still have to deal with this like weird online terrorist group of people who are telling you, hey, don't talk about fat. Don't joke about fat. Let people like fat acceptance. I think it's okay for the rest of us to be like, nah, I don't accept this. I don't accept it in myself, and I don't accept it in others, and I don't think that's a negative thing. And I think that's like we need to freaking stop. You know what I mean? It's crazy. I just thought FatCon. What are we talking about? You know what I mean? FatCon. It's like, oh man, listen, I want to be I wish I had a food truck because I would pull up outside FatCon, you know? I mean, right? Just a good burrito truck. Just once a year you go to FatCon and make your whole nut for the year at FatCon. So, I don't know. But anyways, that is what it is. Next week, we'll be back to normal, back live. But I do have some more guests planned. I'm going to get the guests in. Probably a lot of it will be remote. You know, I know it's like the pandemic's over, so people got like, I get why you're doing remote. But, you know, remote's actually still good. People do it on the news all the time. You know, when you're looking at CNN, they're like, they're not always in studio. They're someplace. So I'm going to do the same thing because I don't necessarily want people coming to my place because I have a kid. So I am going to like that. That was my excuse before for not having guests, but I'm just going to start having random guests, you know, and some of them are just like really fantastic. Like my next guest right now, he is a radio host, a longtime legendary radio host and actor. His accolades go far back. He's been on so many television shows, but there's a great documentary about him because people that know that this guy is absolutely fantastic. His name is Phil Hendrie, and I'm going to welcome him to the podcast now. Welcome to the podcast, the comedian, actor, radio personality, legend in the game. Welcome to Riffin with Griffin, Mr. Phil Hendrie.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, man. So, you know, I saw the trailer for the documentary. I read a little bit about it, and it's just like, you know, it's celebrating you. But you've been in the business for so long, and I just wanted to get right into it. What do you think about the differences between like what radio was before, and do you count podcasting as radio now, or is it something separate, or is it just morphed into this? What do you think the difference is between then and now?
Well, I mean, then was the limitations of the medium of radio meant that you had to appointment listen, just like television, and you had to pick up the show when you wanted to pick up the show, and you had to listen when you needed to listen. And the biggest difference between then and now is that we now have this choice where we can listen to as much or as little as we want to. We can download as much or as little as we want to. There's no more appointment listening. And so as a result of that, the things like talk radio, for instance, which was a live, immediate format, that's gone, man. You know, and I would have to even say that radio as we knew it is gone. It's not the everybody sharing an experience at the same time. There was a time when we would get to work and we'd say, "Did you hear so and so this morning? Hey, were you listening to the radio this morning? Did you hear this?" Everybody was sharing this experience on the commute in or the commute home. Everyone was sharing this experience listening to. We don't do that anymore. We hear it when we hear it. And hey, have you heard Riffin with Griffin? Well, I haven't listened to that one yet. Is that yeah? It's available. Right? So everyone's listening when they can listen, and that and everybody would say, isn't that terrible that it doesn't exist anymore? I don't know whether it's terrible or not. It's just the way people want to listen to things, and so radio does not exist really in the way that it did, if it exists at all. I don't personally think it does. I think there's a few talk shows where they're super political. Sports radio,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. I remember back in 2013 when they said we're getting out of the broadcast. They said we're getting out of the talk radio business because it's too controversial and it pisses off and scares the sponsors. I know what we'll do. We'll do sports radio. It's controversial, but no one really. It doesn't matter who the quarterback for the Jets is going to be this weekend, but people argue about that stuff anyway. Well, that only went so far. Like, who's really going to get invested in an argument like that? So. Now, I think there are certain talk formats that exist. They don't take phone calls as we used to, and it's just some dude running his mouth about how crappy stuff is, and who needs to hear that on the radio? So, AM radio is where it exists. Who listens to AM radio? Like people who are over 100 years of age. once they all die, man, then that's it for AM radio. Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned appointment listening and appointment television. Man, I miss that. I mean, there's something special. There's something special about, like, you would do this with your family. You would, like, your favorite show would come on and it would be a thing that you would, like, it's almost like sitting down and eating dinner as a family, how important that is. And it would translate over to, like, this is the show we're all going to watch together, whether you like it or not. And there was something bonding and special about that. And I do think that element of it is gone. But my only pushback would be, like, yes, we're not watching an appointment, but like look at the Joe Rogan podcast, for instance. If there's a big guest on there and there's something going on, then everybody talks, oh, did you hear about that? Eventually you get like a week. Yeah. You get like a week to listen, and then people kind of talk about it. But
it's a delayed reaction, but it's still, nonetheless, it's controversial, sure, yeah.
Yeah, but, I feel like also that, like, I feel like it's very niche. I guess it always was, but I guess there's so much content out there that, like, even something as big as Rogan or whatever podcast is out there, there's however big the audience is, in the grand scheme of things, it's like a very niche market. Did you think that radio was bigger before, say, than the podcasts are now, no matter how big it is?
It felt like it. I mean, let's just look at it in terms of money. I mean, my best year in radio, I made over $1 million a year. That's a lot of bread, man, for a radio host.
Yeah.
I don't know of any podcast hosts other than the super, super successful ones. Let's say Adam Carolla and Joe Rogan. And I don't know, I'm just joking. But I mean, that Rogan and Carolla are pulling in 7 figures a year. Got to be, because they've got nothing but advertising. Although maybe I don't know the economics of podcasting as well as I should. But in radio, there was a lot of bread. And you were making, even a local host here in LA doing morning drive was going to make $250,000 a year, maybe 300, 400,000 a year, maybe more. That money in radio doesn't exist anymore. Why? Because the advertising base isn't there anymore. Why? Because the listeners aren't there anymore. Well, the listeners aren't there anymore because they're off doing other stuff, whether it's podcasting, talking on their phone, hanging on Instagram, who knows,
Well, I actually think that there's actually a lot of podcasts that are making a lot of money.
Are they?
And I think that, like, because of YouTube revenue, and I think that, no matter how much video is out there, I think the audio is where the real money still is, which is ironic. It's still, people are listening in their cars. They're still listening, like, the podcast market, and you don't need as many fans as you did before. So maybe back in the day, you needed to, like, be number one in a radio station, and you needed to know you had 7 million listeners. But now, because of the technology, you can have like 300,000 subscribers on your podcast or whatever, and you're going to be
downloads.
You know what I mean?
And no doubt there's people making money, and no doubt there's way more podcasters than there were radio broadcasters. There's way more podcasters possibly than there ever were radio stations.
For sure.
So, 1,000%. There's plenty of bread. That's all of those advertisers that are funneling. It could be subscription money. See, I have primarily a subscription site, although I do have advertisers. It could be advertising money. individually, the individual podcaster, I don't think is making that person is making a lot of bread. It may be that the platforms are making money, and individuals like Rogan, like Corolla, like some of those guys are probably pulling down some big bank. But if you look at the universe of podcasters, I don't know that those guys are making that much money, other than enough money to keep the thing, on the air. Now, I'm not talking about the heavy ass influencers on YouTube and that kind of thing. That's a different.
Right.
We're talking about that universe of podcasters out there. Who are the advertisers? When we were in radio, it was Budweiser, it was Firestone Tires, it was some big money advertisers. Now, I don't know if that kind of bread, that kind of advertising money is in podcasting or not.
Well, apparently it is. I mean, there, like I say, there are some. You hear about these deals that some of these podcasts are, made. It's multi-million-dollar deals for.
Well,
their
like
content.
with Spotify and Joe Rogan.
Yeah, Spotify. They did it with Jason Bateman and that podcast that they do. I know the girls from The Office. They have a big podcast. They always talk about they're making just as much money as they were making on the show. I mean, it's just, I think the money and stuff is there. I just more mean like I guess the feeling is different. It's like I remember radio. It's like Howard Stern. There was a time when Howard Stern was like the biggest personality on the planet, and everybody was talking about it. It'd be like, did you hear what happened on Stern? Did you hear what happened on Stern? So I don't know if that's what it is anymore, where it's just one. That's why I'm saying it's kind of a niche market now, where you could collect your fans, make a great living, and not have to worry about collecting the masses. I think that's where it's different.
That's a good point, man. That's like what we used to call narrowcasting, And I remember having a programming meeting with my boss in Miami, one of my last jobs in radio, who said, everybody's number one at something, guys. Everyone's number one at something. We're number one in men, you're number one in women, you're number one in young people, you're number one in teens,
Yeah.
So and the podcast you're talking about from The Office, those actors pulling down the kind of bread. Of course, as an actor, I don't know who they are. I mean, actors will make $5,000 a week on a show for 6 or 7 weeks, or maybe if you're a regular, that's a whole different thing. But if you're just a regular, if you're an actor and you get a gig, $5,000 a week, and maybe you're recurring, and maybe for a week, one season you made yourself $40,000. That still ain't a lot of bread.
I know. Isn't it funny how when people see you on TV, they think, "Oh my God, you must be rich." Like I was on a show called Workaholics, and I remember it was basic cable on Comedy Central. If I had to rely on the money I made that season, the first season, I would have had to have a regular job to survive. You know what I mean?
Augment your income.
Just to pay bills. you know what I mean? It's so funny. Like people don't really realize, where is the money? You know what I mean? So it's like,
well, we know where the money is. The damn thing.
It's like whoever's writing the check, right?
Yeah, they need to cut loose with a little more bread. But I mean, if you sit down and you think about it, $5,000 a week is really good bread.
Oh no. And then listen, in the grand scheme of things, it's like if you're making like a vice principal salary, and you're you know what I mean, like that's what it is though, is like when you're in the entertainment business, I find myself, before when I was younger, you're always looking to see like, all right, who's at the top of their game, and if you don't achieve that, you feel like, oh man, am I failing because I didn't get that? I often say that my career is like I'm on a treadmill set to 1. And it's just like, it just goes and goes and goes. And I don't know until I look back that I see, oh, I've actually done a lot of stuff.
You've been a long way, man.
I've gone a long way. So I feel like that's the way it is. And so I feel like someone yourself, like you've done so much, man. And by the way, you have a phenomenal speaking voice, man. Like it's just,
thanks.
You got that, you just got that. Did you always know? Like, at what point did you know, like, I got to put this on the radio? When did it happen?
I always loved the radio. See, I didn't know if I had a good speaking voice. My father had a good speaking voice. He was a salesman, but he always had a naturally good voice. And I just knew I wanted to be on the radio, and I knew that you had to kind of talk a certain way. I think my first gig in radio at WBJW, Winter Park, Florida, I think I actually talked like this, Hey,
of course you did.
Florida weather, because I thought you had to. I don't know how to do this shit, No, Phil, just talk. And when they said just talk normally, I'm like, well, that's going to sound crappy. What do you mean talk normally? I'm going to sound like a rank amateur. Well, that's essentially what the goal is. But no, I always loved radio. That's what I wanted to do. And it just so happens, I mean, if I had a voice like this, I'd probably make it work too. If you really love the business,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, you'd be on the Disney Channel if you had a voice like that,
Exactly.
right? You
Yeah,
know what it
so-
was? You know, it's funny when I was a kid. My mom used to like have all these records, like actual real vinyl records. And
Yeah.
what I used to do was I would like, and then we had the record player, and it was connected to a recorder. You know, a tape cassette recorder. So
Yeah.
I always wanted to be on radio. So what I would do is I would play her Johnny Mathis records, and at the end of the records, I would be like, "And that was Johnny Mathis here
Yeah.
on K Sun 105.7." You know, I used to like pretend to do that all the time. So it's like,
Me too.
you know what I mean? So it's
I
like
think that was what we did. Yeah.
you know, and I miss those days. I don't even know. Do you listen to the radio when you're in the car? Because
I don't.
me neither.
Yeah,
It's like
don't.
I find
listen to my
myself
damn phone. I got all my music in the phone.
right.
And, you know, and then I listen to all Phil's music. There's my music. It's like we're narrowcasting to ourselves now, man. You know, so that's how kind of how focused down it's gotten.
You know what I
And-
find too? You know what I find too? Not to cut you off, but just to say, like,
No.
I find that like I don't know how to learn what the new music is because it's so easy to be like, oh, like the hits from the 90s, you know, like
Yeah.
70s, the hits from the 70s, and you kind of cultivate this playlist, and then the apps kind of do it for you too because you listen to Jimi Hendrix, you're gonna hear
You should
this,
listen
this,
to
and
this.
this. Yeah,
Yeah.
so then you kind of go like, then you kind of get stuck in this mode of like you're like in a time capsule, and you're never knowing what the new thing is. Like, what do you think of that?
Unless you make an effort at like when I first got out of radio and I started doing my podcasting and my netcasting, I thought, how do I stay connected to the culture? And I thought the
Right.
two things that will do that for me is listening to hip hop and metal. Those two forms of music would keep me connected to the
Yeah.
the nature of the culture, and it did. You know, I learned all about Kid Ink, and I learned all about these bands like Demon Hunter, and I actually grew to like a lot of that music too, which is really weird. My girlfriend would go, "What is with you? You know, dude, you listen to hip hop."
You're just
So
in
you
your
have
car
to-
blasting
when I
Ice
go
Cube.
to iTunes and I'd look at what the biggest, what were the recent releases on hip hop, what were the recent releases in metal, and I'd start listening to that. You know,
Did you consider that research? It was just like for the job at first, and then it just became like, oh, I actually kind of like this guy.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then you started
absolutely
to
for
follow
the
up.
job.
Yeah.
And then I said, oh wow, I would actually could put some of that stuff into my phone. You know, on the play. You know, I don't even know if I pronounce their names right because I sound so lame, but I'll tell people things like, you know, Kid Cudi, is that how you pronounce his name? The cat's great, you know. And I listen to
Kid Cudi. Okay, I get you.
yeah. I don't know who, but and then I would listen to hieroglyphics. I love those guys. And,
Oh,
and
wow.
it just got weirder and weirder, you know. And then
Yeah.
and in terms of metal, like I said, Demon Hunter and you know whatever Metallica's doing. But I think those two genres connect us directly to the young people, and the young people are the ones that are really the culture. They
Yeah.
are the
Oh,
ones
it's
that
so.
are feeding it.
I completely agree with you. You know, I always often say to myself, like, what's getting the two things that make you feel old? It's when your body breaks down, and young people. You know, and you know, like young people are the ones that make you feel like you should just end it now. You know what I mean? You know, and so it's like, how do you stay in touch with them? Because I think what happens as you get older, you know more. Okay, so like you remember when things were a certain way, and now they've changed, and you've lived through both. Young people, they've only lived through now. So they don't even understand that, you know, this is going to change. And so I think that when you're being really old is being out of touch. So I admire that you saw that as like, you know what I need to do? I need to stay relevant by understanding what they're all about. And so it's like, is there ever a time even now, because you're still going strong, is there ever a time, what's made you feel old, if anything has?
Looking in the mirror. This documentary, as much as I love Pat and Jordan for doing the documentary, the shots they picked of me, I mean, could they have made me look older? They're like washed out, you know. I'm just
Right. You're like, come on.
Where are we now? Are we on? Okay. Yeah, looking in the mirror. Although sometimes I look at myself and go, not bad. But I'm joking, of course.
No, you look all right.
What makes me feel old is thank you, brother. Nothing, man. I mean, but I will say
That's good. I like that.
My girlfriend Jackie has a son. He's a great guy. He's a photographer in his mid-20s, and he sounds like I did. No. You guys don't understand. Here's what's going on. That's kind of how every generation of young person
Yes.
approaches things. No. Let me tell you how it really. Now, Jackie was a journalist. She was a lifetime journalist. She worked in news. She worked in broadcast, television, and radio news. And yet there he is saying to her how news is collected, how it's disseminated, how it is interpreted. And Mom, you got it all wrong. This is how it's done. Right now, I know things change, but things ain't changed that much.
Right.
In terms of how you collect news and how you want it disseminated. So I think the thing that makes me feel old is that no matter how smart I may think I am and how experienced I think I am, there's a limit to that people want to hear. They're just going to go about their business, consuming the world as they will. And your viewpoint is only good up to a point.
Well,
and then you're like talking into a wind tunnel.
Well, I think that like sometimes, you know, when you're in the business and you look at your peers, like it's me as a comic, you know, I'm a comic, right? So like, you know, you might be like, well, why is that person say more famous, or why are that person selling out this and that? And you realize that it's not necessarily about someone being more talented so much as it is about the people like hearing whatever it is from that person. You know, and sometimes you either age out of that, or sometimes you don't connect the way someone connects, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. It just happens that way. Some people have that it factor, or some people have that, you know. And so I know what you're saying, where sometimes it's like, hey, you had your time, and you go, well, how can my time go away? It doesn't. Yeah. It doesn't necessarily go away.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. Just people will go, well, we actually want to listen to someone else now.
Yeah. I think what I'm really saying is that when it comes to interacting with young people, what makes me feel old is when they look at me and they say, "Yeah, it's real great, Pops." Now, anyway, you know, yeah. So, you know, you're a comic and you enjoy your humor. Otherwise, you wouldn't be a comic. You make yourself laugh, and the more you enjoy what you do, the more people cannot help but enjoy what you're doing. And I think that is how really ultimately how we become successful, whether it's in the podcasting way where we have our limited audience, but we're making a whole lot of money from them, or it's in a larger mass media way in which we're like, you know, I don't know who, some famous comedian on TV, you know, like John Oliver or you know, Stephen Colbert. So I think me, cats that are sort of like mid-level media influencer comedian people, we just keep on doing what we're doing. We keep exploring through the river of comedy and through the river of humor. We keep exploring this world and making ourselves laugh and reaching out to people. And you can't help but be successful. You cannot help but to hit it out of the park. Now, I don't know what kind of success you envision for yourself, but if you keep on doing that, you will have great success.
I agree with you completely, and it's like one of these things that again comes with age. You know, you're talking like a seasoned person that has like patience and understanding. And if you think back to your like, if you were to give this speech you just gave right now to 25-year-old Phil, what would he say? He
would say, "Yeah, but how do I be funny? I'm not funny. I'm not funny like you. How do I do it?" And I would say to him, "You crack yourself up every day, man. Just write that stuff down." "Oh, are you kidding me, man? I mean, I'm laughing at like, you know, bowel movements and shit. You know, just write that down, man. Just keep on going with that and keep on looking at people. You're not just laughing at that. You're laughing at the world around you. Write it down. Embrace it. Embrace it. Love it. Accept it. That's you. Don't look down on it. It's fantastic, man. I got hung up for so many years, Eric, afraid of expressing who I was because I was so fucking weird. I was so weird, man. I'm doing voices and talking to myself and making people believe they're real. Who does that, you know? So for the longest time, I was just a mediocre disc jockey, spinning records and trying to do kind of those usual disc jockey bits, you know, maybe getting joke sheets and stuff, until I finally said, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to do exactly what is inside of me. Whether I get hired in a little tiny dinky radio station in the Midwest, whether I get hired at a big station, I don't care if I spend the rest of my life in Alaska, I'm going to express 100% who I am.
Do you remember the first time you did that?
Huh?
Do you remember the first time you did that? Do you
Yeah,
remember?
I can tell you the exact time.
Yeah, tell me about that when you finish your thought.
Well, I would just say that's what I would tell the young Phil,
Young
because you
Phil.
can't help but be successful if you do that. But the exact day that I said that to myself, I was on a train, believe it or not, going up the Pacific coast to visit a girlfriend in Portland. I decided to take this train. And I was sitting in one of those first class berths that I bought for myself, and I was looking at the setting sun going down over the Pacific. And in that instance, I looked out and I said, I don't care what it costs me. I don't care if I die. I'm going to pull everything inside of me out and be the artist that I always wanted to be.
And what was the first? Do you remember that first show? Were you scared? Were you nervous? Were you like? Did you feel free? What was that first show that you were like, "This is going to be the new Phil"?
Yeah, it was absolutely 100% great. First thing I did was I came in and I stood on my head. I opened the show standing on my head. I had the microphone down. I said, "Hi, folks. I'm Phil Hendrie. I'm standing on my head right now," just to see if I could do that. And I sat down, and I immediately did what was instinctual. I said, "I'm Phil Hendrie, and my name's Toby. I'm just collecting." "Oh, okay. Let's go ahead, Toby. That's great. Thank you." So I started going into a voice, and then it really, for me, it was a matter of riffing, doing voices and characters and riffing on the news that way. That was almost immediate. And then we had Operation Desert Shield, the Gulf War was starting.
Right.
So we started to talk about that. And I decided I'd bring on an Iraqi host who would say that Saddam Hussein is just the shit. He's the greatest, he's the best. You don't understand my president. And for you to have toilet paper to wipe with his face on it, give me a break. So people started to call. And that became something I did not anticipate. And they called up and they wanted to talk to this guy. And my engineer's going, "What do I do?" I said, "Put him through, man. Put him through." So that's it. So next thing you know, now we just that mere fact of saying whatever it is I got inside of me, I'm pulling it out and I'm going to just lay it out there and I'm going to keep working it. We discover things. We discover new things. We discover ways of being that we never thought we would. Places to go we never thought we would go.
Now you're in a room by yourself. Was there any point of you that did you ever feel crazy? You know what I mean? Did you ever feel like, there's it's such a solitary thing to be there and not have the immediate interaction of because when you're a comic, you say a joke, you get laughter. It's great.
Yeah.
When you're in there by yourself, how is that? What's the thought process?
That's a really interesting reason. You're a stand-up, and I'm more of a humorist, or I'm a satirist. I'm a comic, but I don't work in front of a live audience. And it was really interesting you say that, because the few times I tried stand-up, it hung me up that I had to do these beats so the audience would laugh, and I didn't want to have to worry about that. I just wanted to keep talking.
Interesting. Yeah.
But so when you're in that room, it's actually freeing not to worry about whether anybody's laughing or not. They're all laughing in their own places and in their own time. You pretty much know when you're doing something funny, and then.
But you don't need the instant gratification. That's the difference.
No, you don't. The instant gratification you should be giving yourself. This is funny shit that I'm doing.
You know what's interesting about what you're saying is that when you really become say a master at your craft of stand-up comedy, it is the moment that you actually don't care if they're laughing or not. It's the moment that because I always say to people, my favorite time when I'm doing a show is when there's complete silence, because now I know they're listening to me. Now I know they're hanging on every word I'm saying. If I take a moment, I'm like, and then I see the crowd is going they're just looking at you. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, this is great. But when you're young and you first start coming up, it's all about I gotta kill, I gotta make this crowd laugh, and there's this rolling timing and laughter that goes with it. I always found it interesting to see a radio person just in there, it's almost like we're in your head, and then have you ever thought what it would be like if you did have a screen full of people in there, a person in their car listening to you, or the truck driver listening to you, or someone at their office? How would that do you think that would have affected how you would have performed?
No, I would just I'd see all these people, and it would be I'd be talking to all of them, because when I was doing my show and I was doing this goofy stuff, I was doing it to people that got it already, and they understood that I was doing voices, and so they wanted to see how I did it. So they would have been people that were kind of in on the joke with me, and we're all just hanging together. And there's Phil. He's driving his truck. She's in the supermarket, whatever, and everybody's watching me do it. So it's slightly different from walking into a live club and having to get that beat joke, laugh, beat, laugh, beat, It's a slightly different vibe, but no, that wouldn't have bothered me at all.
Do you think that if you think about the era that you came from and think about how things are so different now with just political correctness and do you think you would have had the same show now? Like, do you think you could have done all the things that you did? Because, like, what we call satire, young people today call offensive humor in some cases. So, like, how do you think that this modern era of, like, how people are very, sensitive and aware of, people's feelings, you know what
Well,
I mean?
I have a character. His name's Dr. Emery Clayton. And Phil, you can fool around all you want. You don't fool me, okay? I had a student the other day, and I picked him up and I hung him outside a window. I was going to drop him 3 floors down. You believe me, Phil? Yeah, I do. Okay. Now, what race do you think that guy is?
I don't know. He sounds something.
He started out as black,
right?
and I identified him as such. And I realized that was what was happening in our culture is particularly a lot of black actors that I know and voiceover actors were not really happy with white guys taking their jobs doing these ethnic voices. So what I would do now that I didn't do then is I just wouldn't go identify race at all. I'd say this is a person. This is the personality of this person. This is who they are. Because I do a million different voices, and some people may think they're white. They could be black. Some people may think they're black. They could be white. But I went ahead. I've got a chef, Carl Chedilia. He talks like this. Some people may think he's black. No, he's a fat white man. However, back in the day, people wanted to know race and they wanted to know ethnicity and everything. I just wouldn't go there. Today, I wouldn't go there at all and identify race or anything like that, because A, people don't like blackface. And I don't blame them for not liking it. And B, people don't want to, especially actors, don't want their jobs taken from them. And I was doing a gig once where they wanted me to do a voice of a black chef, and I said, "Well, there's a cat out there who could do the job just as well as me, man. Who's who's not a white guy." Phil Lamar is a guy I know, is one of the great voiceover guys. Looked at me one day, and he was laughing when he said, "There's Phil Hendrie's taking more jobs away from black actors. How you doing, Phil?"
So what did you think of that? Because it's like, you're like, oh.
He was
joking,
he was
but
making a point, but doing it in a friendly way.
Yeah.
And he was right. And so I stopped doing it, and I got all these white listeners of mine calling me woke. And I said, well, look, dude, if woke is not being a racist, I guess I'm as woke as hell. I don't know what are you talking about?
Right. It's like, you know what, man? I always say the word woke is like, I think people use the word woke when they don't have the words to articulate their position.
What they don't like about somebody.
Yeah. And what's the funny thing about it is, like, both sides can use it, like if you're talking about, say, gun control, and somebody could be like, well, we need guns. And why would you say that? Because I'm woke. And the other side, we need to get rid of guns. Why would you say that? Because I'm woke,
Because I'm woke.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like both. So at this point, I don't even know what that means anymore. And I don't want to be like a crotchety old guy where I'm just like, everybody's too sensitive, because I can acknowledge that, like, we've evolved and it's made comedy to the point where now we have to be more thoughtful about what we're doing to still make these same jokes. Like, because if you remember, like through the Me Too movement, it became a thing where we're like, now we're being more aware of, like, oh, well, we got to be more cautious about how we talk about women or what we talk about.
Yeah, I mean, like, if a guy says to me, "You're woke because you're not using the N-word," I can do a half hour on why I don't use that word and what it means in the history of the country and what it means in the history of the culture and what it's meant to people individually and collectively. And if at the end of that you tell me I'm woke, you're just a moron. You're just a racist moron.
Right.
Now, people don't think that we use the word racist too much. I don't. I happen to think that's the main problem with the country right now. That's what I think is dividing us politically right now, is race, especially this concentration on immigration and stuff. So if I'm woke, I'm woke. I don't overdo my politics on the air. I don't really do a political show. But if I was to do something different at the beginning, I just wouldn't identify the ethnicity of the characters I was doing. I would leave that to the audience, and I would just do the essential comedic import of what they were saying,
Right.
But the country at that time, that's where we were. That's probably where we still are.
Is there a part of you that is inspired to be political? Is there ever a thought where you're like, I need to get on the air and like and be this guy?
There was a time, but as soon as politics got the way it got now, the way it's been over the last 8 years, where it's gotten like life and death and daggers at each other's throats, I think what I can do best is just get people laughing about ancillary, the small p politics, as opposed to the you know what I'm saying, Ann?
Yes,
So,
I do. I totally agree with you.
yeah, so I maybe there was a time when doing political humor was really funny and hip, but I think now some stuff is beyond satirization, as you well know. Take a look at where we
Yeah.
are, with some of these politicians we've got. You can't satirize these cats any more than they mock themselves with the way they act. And
Right. And then at this point too, I think that we're at a stage 2 in media right now where it's like, where do you get your information from?
yeah,
I mean, that's the thing that is really like difficult to like disseminate, like what's real, what's not, when you were talking about, let me give you an example. So you talked about sports radio earlier. What I like about sports, like debating, is that even though these people may seem like they don't like each other, or maybe they seem like that, I think you're wrong about this quarterback, they can just, at the end of it, they just go, all right, we agree to disagree, and they move on to the next subject. I think that's what's missing from politics, even though politics obviously is way more important. But I think that what's missing from political talk and is the fact that people can't actually have a conversation or agree to disagree or even take in the other side just to be like, why do you think this way? It's just the kind of thing where it's like an echo chamber. Like, if you're not agreeing with me, get out of here. And I only want to hear what I want to hear. And I think that's the dangerous part, because I feel like that's what you got from radio before. I think that's what was great about radio, talk radio, political radio, and even just like regular disc jockeys. Like, something would happen and you'd be like, oh, let's talk about this,
Yeah, I don't know what happened, man. I mean, I've lost friends over the recent political season. I've lost friends that have been lifelong friends, man. And all of a sudden they go down some road and I'm like, what happened, man? Why do you think that way? We still can hang out if we just don't talk politics.
Right.
Just don't even go there. We can still hang out. But it's pretty amazing. I would like it to be the way you're saying, Eric. So the only solution that I have is I go and I vote the way I feel I ought to vote, and then when I go back to my work, and what I find humorous, like, is just, I find something that can be satirized is religion. And I've invented like 2 fake religions over the last year.
Really? Let me hear.
Well, one of the characters is Dr. Ed Elcott, and this is Elcott, the next step. And he just makes shit up,
Yeah, very Scientology, huh?
Yeah. Today we're going to be talking about the Pondo. The Pondo is where all truth springs. You understand, Phil? No, I don't. All right. We can leap from one building to the next if we have the wings. You see? No, man, I don't get it. Boy, you're lost, aren't you? What the hell is this cat talking about? So I find that to be really funny. New Age religion's really funny. And the emotional import. And I have a coach character. His name is Coach Vernon Dozier. And he just does things like, Coach, this is football. Yeah, it's football season. And I'm going to tell you something right now. I'm not going to have any of these pussies on my field. Just the mere fact that he spits the word pussy out cracks me up. So I just work that.
Yeah, that's old school.
That's old school, yeah. I just figured, so I work that shit, There's lots and lots and lots to laugh at and satirize, and I'll let the rest of the country and the rest of the people take care of this heavy political shit, man. I know how I feel, and I know what I talk about with my friends, but going on the air with it, man, I don't think you'll make any friends anymore.
It's not even worth it. Sometimes does it feel to you like it's like, you know what, this isn't even worth it?
It doesn't feel like it's worth it.
Yeah.
It feels like it's just, that's really not what I do. My job's to make people laugh like yours is.
Right.
Yeah, now there's one cat that does a lot of politics. He's funny. He's a lefty. His name's Andy Kindler.
Oh, I know Andy.
Andy gets on stage and just calls people Nazis and fascists, and somehow it's funny. I don't know how he does
but
it.
sometimes it's so funny you mentioned Andy. Like, I know I've met him many times, and I know if he sees me, he's like, "Hey, Eric," But like, here's the example. Like, I like Bill Maher. I like his show. And I like that, like, it's a place where, all different sides could come and have a real discussion. Now, let's say you don't always have to agree with, say, what Bill Maher's take is, but I like his platform that he's providing.
Right on.
And I saw Andy Kindler one day, like, tweeting about, like, he's like, stop supporting this guy, get him off the air. And I thought to myself, I was like, Andy, like, this isn't
Yeah.
You want him to be on the air, and it's okay for you to disagree with him, but you can't. Let's not remove people because you don't agree with them. I think that's a dangerous thought process. I feel like, and I think that's just where we are.
I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you. It's hard for me to take Andy. I hope he doesn't take this the wrong way, but it's hard for me to take him seriously. I think he's got a thing that he does state of the industry address where he just
he used to do that at JFL every year. I remember that.
And it's pretty funny. I mean, he just rips into the whole business and everybody doing, what he thinks sucks is humor and this and that and something else. I think it's kind of it's his thing, man, to just rip other comedians that have a lot of influence, a lot of power and stuff.
Oh, you know what? I didn't think of it that way. That is his kind of like, he does enjoy doing that,
thing,
right?
Yeah. I don't think he means to. If he knew that he was offending people who really love him, he probably would find a way to do it funnier, maybe. I don't know. But
you know what, though? But that's the thing, though, man. You're not going to be able to determine. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, even though we have a niche market and, it's great to talk to your fans, and your fans support you, right? The problem, though, is that it's so easy for everyone to interact, whether they're a fan with you or not. And I find that, like, the negativity comes through more than the positivity because positive people are like, well, I don't want to get involved in that. Like the comments, you know what I mean? Like, if you're like, if I'm a fan of you, like if I'm a fan of Phil and I go to your page and then I look and I see like 7 negative comments from some trolls, maybe I don't want to get involved in that. So I just go, I'm just going to listen. And so as an artist, all you see is the negativity and not realizing, but there's still people out there that love you. They just don't want to get involved in the negativity.
Yeah. I think when it comes to Facebook pages, those are really marketing pages for us. I mean, a lot of people use them because they want to make friends, but I think for you and me and for others, we have to really tightly control the commenting on those. I don't like to do it. I don't want to censor people, but I'm not going to let somebody come into my store and talk about how crappy my product is. So when I can, I go ahead and I delete those and block a lot of those people so that people who like me will come in and share, and people may say, well, that's not free speech. I said, well, whoever said that it was, man. I mean,
I refuse. Like it'd be like you go to a store and there's a sign that says they refuse the right to serve anyone. They have the right to refuse service to anyone. I feel this way too, man. This is my page. And if you don't like me, well, then kick rocks. Yeah. What are you doing here? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and they never have a good answer, but they keep right. It'd be like looking at a full page ad for Campbell's soup, and then somebody goes, "Yeah, this soup really sucks." What the hell, man? The guy just paid for a page of an ad.
You're like, why do I have this guy here? All right, listen, I want to ask you about this. Tell me about the documentary and what you're feeling about it, and how did it come about, and what could people expect when they tune into it?
Yeah, I am not a producer on it, Eric. Jordan Brady produced and Pat Reynolds directed, and they called me one day. I didn't know either one of these gentlemen. They said, let's have a meeting. We'd like to do a documentary about you.
Oh, that must have been a great feeling. What did you think about that?
I thought that was awesome. And but the first thought I had was, well, if this is a documentary, it's supposed to be good journalism. And good journalism would mean I have nothing to do with producing. Otherwise, it's like producing a documentary about yourself. So I immediately told them.
Like Michael Jordan.
I'm really. Did he produce that one?
Yeah.
What's the name of that? I love that doc, though. What's the name of that?
Great. I think, what's it called?
Netflix.
It was on ESPN, I believe
ESPN,
it was.
Yeah. I loved it, though. Yeah, because he was speaking some truth there too. But I basically
so they come to you and they're like, "We want to do a documentary." So that's very flattering. Did you think it was a hit piece at all at first? Was there ever a thought it was like, "Ooh, these are all the girlfriends coming at me"?
They made a point of saying, Phil, we like your show. We want to get the word out about your show. We plan on presenting you in the best light possible. And I said, okay, that's fair, but that's your take and that's your call. And so I said, I won't be involved in this at all. They interviewed me the very first time in the spring of 2018. So that's like 6 years ago. And they went about collecting people who liked me and interviewing them and finding out about my career, got a hold of my old audio tapes and put together this documentary that to me looks like the documentary. At first, the way it starts, and I was laughing about this with Jackie, it was almost like it was a eulogy, like once upon a time this man lived, he's fucking dead now.
It's like when people call you a legend, right? You're like, hey, I'm still doing it. I'm still alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought, holy Jesus, am I alive or dead in this thing? And then it went on to interview people, and a lot of stuff came out that I thought was cool, my own vanity. I thought I looked really washed out in some of the shots, but had I done it, I might have done it differently. I think it's a good, and all the feedback I'm getting, people love it, and I think it's a good representation on a career that I spent. There's a lot of struggle in that career, and it comes out in the doc talking about that. And there was a lot of hard work. There was a lot of rejection. There was a lot of doubting myself, and there was a lot of good stuff that came from it. So I think that's pretty honest, and I'm grateful.
Well, that's good to hear, man. I mean, you are. I mean, I hate to say it again, but you are a legend. You know what I mean?
Well,
it's like that.
As long as you say so, I guess.
Listen, for the people that they had in the documentary, to talk about you in the way that they did, just like Bill Hader. Or some of the other, it's like Judd Apatow, like everybody, and everybody's thought was the same thing. Like, listen, if you don't like Phil, I don't want to. Whoever doesn't like Phil, I don't like them. Like, and
Derek,
that's like,
Derek,
and that.
Yeah, that was Derek Waters who created and produced Drunk History. He said, "I don't want to know you if you don't like Phil." I worked for Derek twice on that show and threw up both times. But yeah, there were really great people in there, and especially Henry Rollins, who's not a comic. He's a musician turned commentator, actor, and he did say something that I liked, and I agree with. As much as I like my old radio show, Henry said, "I think his show's funnier now, just the goofy crap he does at a podcast." I agree with that. I at least I'm having more fun now, I think, than I did then.
Well, because it's like at a certain point, you're building your legacy. You're trying to prove yourself. And like you have long since proved yourself. So the fact that you're still in it now, this is legitimately for the love of the game.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, you're doing a great job. I appreciate your work that you're doing, and it's inspirational. And I hope the old and young people that watch my show, my small audience, will be like, oh, I like this guy. Let me go check this show out. Well, that was Phil. Make sure you check out the documentary. It was a fantastic conversation. I'm glad I recorded that. And it just inspires me to be like, you know what? I got to get more people on the podcast. But anyways, I want to appreciate everybody watching Riffin with Griffin. You know how we do it every single week. Make sure you subscribe, so you can know when you get the notification, so you know when I'm going live or when I'm uploading a podcast episode. And then make sure you hit me up on Twitch. I'm twitching all the time. I'm twitching almost every day. I twitch. Even when I go on the road, I take my stuff with me. So make sure you check that out. And also, I do my Patreon content, a Monday Nuance, where I go into a subject and I look at the nuance of it. And that's every Monday. That I go live there too. So make sure you check that out on Patreon. All the links and stuff are in the description. And I want to thank everybody for watching Riffin with Griffin. And shout out once again to Mr. Phil Hendrie. But you know what that means? It's rap recap. Whoo! And we back. This beat ain't whack. I love that cat. Erik G is back. All right, everybody. That's all we're going to do on the rap recap. But I appreciate you being here. And as always, every Wednesday, every Monday, unless something's going on. And shout out once again to Mr. Phil Hendrie. Make sure you guys check out his documentary and check out his radio show. And this has been Riffin with Griffin, and I will see you next week.